And welcome everyone to Spore War After the War, our weekly series of analysis and retrospection on every episode of Spore War as it airs. This is the After the War series focusing on Prelude 1, which, if you've just watched that, you got to see the inaugural full session of Spore War, our Pathfinder 2nd Edition actual play here on Dungeon Scrawlers. I am Jason Collins. I am a freelance comic book writer, tabletop role-playing game designer, actual play producer, and streamer. And I am producing the Spore War series for this program, which I'm very happy to do, and I've been very pleased to be part of this process. And I am pleased to introduce the Gamerunner for Spore War, Matt.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jason. And thanks for producing, editing, collaborating on the GMing and everything else that you've done. This has been a lot of fun to prep for. And I think our first Prelude session, I think the players had fun. I definitely had fun. I think it went pretty well, all things considered.
And that's the sort of the acid test that we have to go through, and we have a few things to talk about tonight because it was the inaugural sort of a session that we did. And off the top of my head, without having written anything down, right, we had mechanical game questions, we had technical software questions, we had technical glitches during the stream, during the recording, and we had just tactical gameplay and just a lot of explanations along the way as well, in addition to you connecting with the players and ensuring that everybody sort of had a moment to shine, both in terms of the role play and in terms of the combat scenes, everybody to contribute, which can be a challenge as well. Without digging into any one of those things specifically, how are you feeling now that the first session is done, and how do you think that went?
I think it went great. The fact that there were glitches and there were some rough spots is par for the course. But I think the one thing that I wanted to emphasize right away is having players that are that easy to engage is a huge benefit. They stayed engaged, they stayed interested, they had fun, which is part of it.
Yes.
And that was what I was really worried about, right? If you have a flubbed start that is not engaging, losing players at this point would be a huge problem. So I wanted to make sure that they were having a good time, and the only way the viewers are going to enjoy themselves is if the players are enjoying themselves. So that was important to me. And it's not all on the GM, of course. The players engage with each other, they engage with the material, they engage with the interesting, fascinating characters they've created. But these players are great. Like they're so easy to run for. So that was a huge gift. These are not people I've met before this game. We did a session 0. We did some meetings beforehand, but this is really my first chance to play with them. It's also absolutely, playing with strangers can be difficult, but with great players like this has been great so far.
I agree, absolutely. Everybody had a good time. Everybody was patient, even as we went through some of the motions. Nobody seemed to be, disinterested or bored when we had to pause for rules clarifications, or maybe a little bit of a do-over on a couple things as things came up along the way. Everybody's very forgiving, I guess is the nice way to say that, and so that's really appreciated as well.
That's absolutely true.
And I certainly appreciate it as well as we navigated through some impromptu technical glitches. And so if you've watched Prelude 1 for Spore War and you see there's a little bit of an edit hop where as we jump between the start and stop of a scene, there was a little technical magic in the background as we edited out a brief pause and fixed some problems, and hopefully through the magic of editing it'll be seamless for the audience who watched.
Part of that, can I explore that for a second? Because I think it's interesting that, in terms of running a game, I mean, there's just so much to do on the production side and on the GM side. When cameras start getting shuffled around, like, it was just the most random glitch no cause identified. But again, we didn't lose the player engagement or interest.
Mhm.
It was just because the game attracts people who are into having that kind of dialogue, and they're happy to chat about the meta in the game while you fix that. Um,
That's
and
right.
thanks for fixing it. But yeah, there's
So,
but part of it too could have been way worse in the sense that beforehand you had spent so much time organizing people's sound levels and giving tips on how to get things configured. There was a lot going on behind the scenes. So thanks for that, Jason.
no, absolutely, and that's the learning process. Now, this is the third actual play series that I've been a part of. The second actual play series where I've been recording and producing and essentially doing a lot of those the technical lifting to go along with it. I've appreciated not having the game master duties layered on top of that, because that would have been a lot if I'd had to pause the game in the middle of trying to run the game at the same time. But as you say, with actual play, with a this type of a forum, it is something that comes up, and you and I have talked before about watching actual plays where the production quality is not always 100% there, or there's obvious things that they just missed from a quality standpoint in terms of video or audio quality. But then sometimes there's just a technical thing where somebody can't see something, somebody's not logged in. I've watched streams where someone's camera stops working or they can't get their camera to work, and how you handle and adapt to that, and how you just keep the game vibrant and moving is a key to success for everything else as well.
That will never happen to us again. We'll have no further problems, I'm
I,
sure.
I hope so. I hope so. So Prelude 1, not quite in the bag because we had some delays. We didn't quite wrap up Prelude 1 in a single setting, as was the original goal for these Prelude sessions.
Yeah.
But that'll be fun to come back to it. And you and I were talking as well about how important the Prelude is for this lower level play. Establish the characters, learn their characters' abilities, which if you watch Prelude 1, and you'll see the dice roller was active in terms of not just rolling the dice, but we were sharing all of the Pathfinder 2nd Edition rules and feats and little tips in the chat so that everybody could read it quickly, and so that the audience could see it as well. So we hope that anybody who's not had a chance to play Pathfinder 2nd Edition appreciates getting a little glimpse into some of those rules and things that come up. And we tried to do that in an efficient way with Roll20, where we can click a button, it pops up right in the chat, and everybody can read it, but we don't have to spend a lot of time digging through books and delaying the game that way, and just move on with the scene.
I'd like to comment on that a little bit on a couple different points. One is I would be drowning if we were right into 11th level play
Yes.
with these characters. Part of the unforeseen benefit of doing preludes is seeing the characters when they're less complicated at low level while I'm refreshing my memory and my skills with respect to using Roll20. I haven't used it in years because we used Roll20 during the pandemic lockdown, but I haven't. This is my first actual play. This is my first time using it since.
That's right.
And having to do that, plus I'm relearning Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Haven't played that in a while, and also the remastered version of it, which is so different. It would be very challenging to do that with 11th level characters and not become
Absolutely.
overwhelmed. So this gives me a chance. It gives the players a chance. It gives and not just in terms of the rules and the technical aspects, but it's also been really great just to allow the character. The intention was to give the characters room to breathe, so they're not suddenly 11th level without a backstory, and they haven't a chance to interact with each other. So I think it's serving all the intended purposes and more. And one of the things that I think is really important to emphasize, because the After the War is supposed to be a breakdown for those who are interested, but also for people who are not experienced with running games, seeing how, having us talk about what went on and
Mhm.
why we made decisions, why I made GMing decisions or game runner decisions. The It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have a perfect understanding of the rules. And I am rusty on all this stuff, but I think if I perceive it correctly, I think we got through those points. I've no doubt I made flubs on some of the rules, but the important thing is to
Yeah.
keep the pace moving and keep the game going and keep it entertaining more than spending an hour researching how a rule is actually supposed to work.
And getting it right, perfect versus good, right? And so that's exactly right. And there's some things that I was starting to remember about 2nd Edition as the scene in the pond was ongoing, because there's things that players can do where, if I recall correctly, that if you're using a skill or engaged in an action at the time that an encounter breaks out, you don't have to use your initiative roll. You can use that skill or whatever
Correct.
roll to as your initiative roll for that. So there's little things like that. Things like the hunt prey and the flurry of blows and things that came up during the encounter scene. I think those are things that they can set up on their sheets and actually toggle them as active states, which will ensure that all their bonuses and things are added as well. Because there's a lot of manual math in Prelude 1 that sort of the players are doing on the fly, which they did an
Yeah,
excellent job of doing their best to remember things as they came up.
they did.
But I think there'll be a technical advantage that we can give everybody if we can figure out in the Roll20 Roll20 interface how they can toggle some of those built-in character abilities so that they add in automatically and it calculates all those bonuses right away.
Yeah, we've got a couple of people who are knowledgeable about Roll20 and have been able to provide some tips to
Yes,
some of the other players.
absolutely.
Nice. We've got varying levels of experience with Pathfinder second edition or second edition remastered. No one's really fluid with, but the extent to which there are always going to be errors, and I don't want to get bogged down in them.
No,
Especially in an actual play, but even at a tabletop, I think there's so much benefit in saying, "We'll look that up later," but for right now, here's what we're doing, just to keep the game flow going.
that's exactly right. That make a call, make a ruling, and then just and continue on with the scene so that everybody just keeps having fun. And it's a good use of everyone's time. And yeah, you just even if you get it totally wrong, the next time it comes up, you can correct it or make it your own house rule or whatever you want to do.
The only time I would get bogged down in that in a game is if there was a correction that I needed to make that was adversely affected a player, right? Like if it was a serious issue that where I'd made a mistake or a wrong call and someone had died as a result. Um, Hopefully not a player, hopefully only a character.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I would want to revisit that.
For anybody that's watched Prelude 1, there's a scene at the beginning where the player characters encounter each other in a tavern. They encounter some NPCs. There's a little bit of sort of establishing of motivations and so forth there. I wanted to ask you, as the game runner, but also as a just sharing GM experience for anybody that's watching, how did you feel about using that scene with the map, with the tavern setup? So there's a bit of an immersion there, and kind of gives everybody a bit of a visual, and there was a bit of a positioning because it was as there always is, a classic little tavern brawl that breaks out. Versus running that theater of the mind and just describing the sights and smells, letting the players add in their own sort of emotions and descriptions to it, and not relying as much on the map side of it for something that was an important start to the game, but it wasn't a critical tactical encounter.
I originally not intended to do the tavern scene at all, and had intended to have them meet at a place closer to the lagoon.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I added is partly because I just wanted to poke fun at the cliche of
Yes.
you all meet in a bar, and there's a certain familiarity. I use it more than I should, but I don't care. I love that mechanic. And part of the reason I love that mechanic is because a bar fight in a bar that the players have to deal with when they're low level is a chance with low impact to take a test run of their characters and what they can do.
Yes.
And so I wanted to put it on the battle map so that if they wanted to avoid the fight, it would have been fine. But I wanted to give them the opportunity to throw some punches and get into a brawl, figure out how the action economy works, figure out how the map works, how the token movement tools work when the stakes were low, because no one's going to get murdered in this tavern. It's going to be fists, but the action economy, the token movement's going to be tactical anyways. Potentially. I decided not to go into initiative because I wanted to keep things quick and lively.
That's right.
But the crab encounter, the way that I'd described it, was so potentially lethal. If it had gotten its claws onto someone and they had not gotten out, it was automatic damage every round, and someone could have died. And it was almost likely because it was an extreme challenge
Yes.
on the level comparison.
Yeah.
So level 6. A high level 6 too,
Yes.
compared to 3 third level characters. And just the high armor class, high damage, high attack chance, high capacity to grapple someone and hold them permanently, so they were on a clock to kill it quickly. I did not want to be dealing with people figuring out how to move tokens and getting in the wrong place and figuring out how the action economy worked. when that much was on the line.
And so the tavern gives you that sort of warm up practice, which I completely understand as the benefit of that for sure. And so don't want to have too many spoilers. Obviously, this is after the war, meaning that hopefully you've watched Prelude 1 before
Yes.
watching this session. But for
Oh yeah,
anybody,
spoiler alert.
but for anybody that hasn't seen it, of course. But yeah, one of the player characters does get caught in a crab claw, and it's a very dangerous couple of rounds that takes place in before the party was able to act together and help that character out. Did you feel any temptation to pull your punches as a game master?
Great question. I'm not going to answer that honestly.
That's fair. That's fair.
No, you know what? I think if it was clear that I had grossly miscalculated the tactical talents of the players or the capabilities of these third level characters, I would have just fudged the hit points down.
Yeah.
A little bit. It had 110 hit points.
Yeah.
Which is an awful lot for them to deal with
It
when
was.
there's damage reduction and all sorts and high armor class. And a lot of them were missing, right? Like the armor class,
the dice wasn't going their way for a lot of them.
They only had a 1 in 3 chance of hitting in the first
Yeah.
place. Some of them. I looked at the character sheets before the game, and I saw what they could do, and I'm like, okay, so this is going to be tough, but not impossible. And I feel vindicated that I was right about that. But yeah, I was ready to admit a mistake in a game system I'm a little rusty on, and fudge the hit points down because I'd pumped them up in the first place.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
there's something very gratifying. It's very gratifying at an established table where you all know each other and you succeed at a very challenging encounter. But for a group of new players, when we talk about the importance of a bonding activity, we're trying to develop a new actual play group here in terms of having a lot of fun, having some great chemistry in the show as people are playing together, advancing a really fun story where the characters are interesting and that players are engaged with that. But for them to pull out a challenging victory early on, there's a huge benefit for that for a new table of players at the same time as well. So there's by not fudging it and letting the dice fall where they may and letting everyone feel the risk. And I don't know that they were sweating it too much, but maybe they were, and I just couldn't pick up on that. Maybe a rewatch will tell me if I could see that in their faces. But that's the part that could pay dividends big time for the game going on.
Yeah, I think Lex may have had a chance to understand the jeopardy they were in. I do think that there are some things I noticed about the players at the end of the session, and partly because of the time. I think they were tired, and we had as you said, some technical issues.
Absolutely.
But they're sort of the sort of core player things that you do: search for loot, heal up after a fight.
That's right.
Don't split up. They have split up. They missed some loot. I realized it would probably be floating, so I gave them that one.
Yes.
They've gone on to the next danger without healing anyone.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things that may come back to bite them, so I'm really curious to see how that plays out.
And this is the great part about this after the war series that we're doing, where we do this analysis and retrospective on the game, is that by the time you're watching this, Prelude 2 is right around the corner. So you'll find out if there's consequences for the players based on what we're talking about right now, and did they catch that? And maybe the players watch this after the war session and see it before that. But we'll have already recorded Prelude 2 well before this ever airs. But it'll be interesting to see if the players come back with a fresh perspective, rested, and as players, and then do they think about their characters' capabilities as they essentially get on ashore and head into the Grove. Yeah. That's really great. First game jitters out of the way, dealt with some technical stuff.
Yeah.
Already have probably a better sense what you do differently next time as far as going forward. What were you finding? You and I were talking for a few moments before we started about juggling all those balls and all of the different things to keep track of. What were you finding was maybe the challenge, or what do you think will be easier next time?
I hate being under prepped, and so there are things that I didn't like. My lack of facility with the rules, getting mixed up about a couple things, I really didn't like that. So I'm going to be spending some time, hopefully, if I can find some time to do that deep dive. But I'm really glad I spent the time refamiliarizing myself with Roll20. I drew the map using Dungeon Draft for the lagoon, and I had fun doing that, but it took a while, and so the time investment was very worthwhile. Um, I don't know. I think the jitters were real in those first few moments before we started recording, but it would be way worse if it was live.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm glad we're not doing live for that reason. I'm excited to see. I don't even remember what your question was now. I've talked myself in a circle.
That's okay. That's okay.
What was it?
Just more to ask, what do you feel that you will do differently next time,
Yeah.
and what do you think will be easier as far as the next session goes now?
I think everything's going to be easier next time, and I hope to. What I would like to do differently next time is have a better run through on the combat rules, especially the ones I already planned to use. I had a printout of the grab and grapple rules, but it was shuffling papers a little bit, trying to find it. Trying to balance all the different screens is a bit haywire as well. I think I'm not worried about the next session. Um,
Good.
Partly because I think the Prelude one may turn into two full sessions because they're keen on the role play side of things, and
Yeah.
that's where the next session will be heavier. They got through this challenge on a combat challenge. I think the next ones are going to be influence challenges and things of that sort.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not worried. I can run those without
Yeah.
preparation.
That's
It's
great.
the combat stuff that's I need to be careful about.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, it'll be Prelude Part 1, and then Prelude 1 Part 1, Prelude 1 Part 2, if that's how it has to go, and then we'll carry on
I
with
I
Prelude.
think that would be less stressful. Plus, I still need to finish writing Prelude too.
There you go. We talk about pulling back the curtain to reveal
Yeah. Oh, I'm pulling the curtain back all the way.
the unvarnished truth of game prep and running a game. Absolutely. And is there anything else that you want to do differently or add in that we didn't maybe do in the first one, or maybe we do one more session to really figure that out? But is there anything that you want to add in from an immersion standpoint for the purpose of the audience to sort of understand? Because I'm recording these and I'm editing them afterwards, I will be editing in some music and some ambience and some immersion pieces, maybe little sound effects here and there where I can find something that works. I quite enjoy doing that. I did that for my previous actual plays that I ran. But trying to do it in the moment during the game is very difficult to do, and the ability to capture that audio consistently is very difficult as well. So I found I did that both ways, where I would be playing music during the game and trying to have a lightsaber ignite up during my Star Wars game, and things that would be really, really cool, and the players would get a kick out of it. But the audio quality ended up being super inaccurate, and it was one more technical component that I was adding to the mix. Much easier to add it in afterwards, so the audience gets the immersion, but the players necessarily don't get that as well. But is there anything outside of that you want us to maybe change up for next time?
You know, and I think it's worth talking about the session zero. Just briefly, we did a session zero. We're probably going to broadcast a session zero. Jason, you did up a test run of just part of the session zero with the music, and I have to say, I thought it went great. Like the way that you've done that seems like magic to someone who doesn't know how to do it. So, well done. No, I don't think there's anything we need to change. I think this actual play will improve just naturally as the players become more comfortable, invested in the characters, invested in the story, as they develop trust in me, and as I, brush off some of the rust on
Yeah,
Pathfinder 2e, especially remastered and Roll20, I think it's just going to get better and better. I do think it's important to do some custom maps.
yeah, sure.
I think that adds a lot, especially when you can remove the fog of war and sort of.
Yes,
And I like the large scale maps. The sort of pre-published small maps, they don't really give an ability to tactically approach a situation. So I like doing the large scale maps where they can approach from afar and decide their engagement range,
yeah,
and when they're going to start, rather than just plunking them at the front door of a tavern with the pre-published one.
absolutely.
I do love the maps we're using, the pre-published ones that from the Patreon. But I do also like generating maps that are exactly how I want them.
Well, and what it allowed you to do, right, in the one that you designed, the lagoon that you designed for Prelude 1, was that you were able to help. Each of them were able to approach the start of that whole encounter with their individual skills, with their specific attitudes as characters, and make different skill rolls and make different assumptions about what to do next or what the next best choice was. And some people were just like throwing caution to the wind and just acting and seeing what happened. And because the map was bigger and the Fog of War allowed you to reveal it in stages and let them then figure out, and there was a little bit of a mystery and investigate that mystery and what does that mean? How should we approach that? That was an advantage, as you say, that the smaller sort of pre-made maps for the adventure path don't always give you that option or give you that opportunity to do it. You'd be doing it more theater of the mind or just describing a scene from afar, but then not being able to lay it out tactically as well.
Correct. Yeah, and the scenes with NPCs like the patrons, I'd rather do those theater of the mind because the important thing there is the actual interaction between the NPC and the player character, or between player characters and NPCs.
Absolutely.
In plural. And so the map at that point can be a distraction.
Yeah, exactly right. And the players are focusing on that part of it rather than just focusing on the interaction with each other or with you as the NPC and how they want to handle that next.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts that you have or that you want to bring to After the War Prelude 1?
I'm curious to see what the players think when they've gotten through the whole thing and then watched some of these. I'm curious about when we're going to broadcast the session 0 because that was great. But I think the core thought that I'm left with is I really enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun, and that's what it's about ultimately.
And the players, for those that have watched Prelude 1, voice that same sentiment at the end of the session as well, unprompted, without being asked how they felt or how they think they went. Everybody just immediately chimed in and just said that was great.
That felt pretty good.
So it was very gratifying, absolutely. So thank you, everybody, for watching Spore War After the War. This is our ongoing series of analysis and retrospection for the Spore War Actual play that we are running here on Dungeon Scrawlers, featuring Pathfinder 2nd Edition and a whole group of fresh players that, with a couple familiar faces, but mostly fresh players that we've introduced to the community, and we're really, really proud to have done that. One more time, my name is Jason Collins. I'm a freelance comic book writer, tabletop role-playing game designer, actual play streamer and producer, and I am pleased to be supporting Spore War as we go on this journey with you.
And I'm Matthew.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.